back to Iowa Mama Bear Talk. I am your host, Kimberly Rikes.
And I am Michelle Lindell, and we have Tracy Slepcevic here today. She is the author of a book called Warrior Mom, and it is a mother's journey in healing her son with autism.
Welcome,
How are you doing
Tracy.
today?
Hi.
Hey, girl, how are you?
Good. How are you?
We are
Thank you for
great.
having me.
Oh,
Yes,
anytime.
Thanks for coming on.
I'm honored to have you on. I don't even know, we've met each other, over a year ago now on the Clay Clark tour?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Like, that whole thing is just amazing. So if you guys have never gone to a Clay Clark event and you want to attend to one, use code Mama Bears to get 10% off your ticket. But let's just jump right into Tracy's and her amazing story on how she helped heal her son with autism. Tracy, tell us a little bit about your son and how he developed autism, and then tell us about your book.
So 16 years ago, when my son was 1, he's 17 now, my son was vaccine injured. After receiving his MMR and varicella vaccine, he started to regress and lose all his speech and motor skills and some cognitive ability, and just kind of, lost touch with the world in a way, went into this little bubble. So it did take me over 2.5 years to try and figure out what was wrong with him. After Harbor Regional Center lost our paperwork, obviously the pediatrician couldn't be bothered answering any questions, and 2 preschools that told me they couldn't care for my child because he had special needs. So I always say God sends me angels in the most beautiful times. So we had a woman that came to work for us for just 2 weeks, in just enough time to guide me on my perfect path to what to do, because I had no idea what to do, where to go, where to have him evaluated, where to go after the age of 3, prior to the age of 3. These are things that most parents just don't know.
Sure.
And so she directed me to Launch Preschool, where they evaluated him and found that he was autistic-like. A preschool cannot diagnose, so they use the words autistic-like. Mm-hmm. And so from there, I had answers, and I was able to find direction. And then came my second angel. As I was going back to my office after our evaluation, I saw my naturopathic doctor in the hallway, and he gave me a great big hug, and he said, I want you to know, Noah will be okay. I want you to go home and do your homework, because kids are making great strides with biomedical intervention. So I sucked those tears back up into my eyes. I went home and nobody saw me for like a month. I was like knee deep in reading books and doing research. Now, back then, this was in 2009. Back then, you could actually Google healing autism, and you would get some really great resources. These days, everything is so censored that what you're going to get is go get your COVID vaccine.
Right.
So my book was written in 3 parts, and I wrote it that way because when I was going through this journey, there were 3 things that I was looking for. The first one was I was looking for guidance and hope, and I wanted to know that I wasn't alone. So I wrote my story, and my story comes with a lot of trials and tribulations. During this, we had lost everything. My husband, who fights against insurance companies, found himself in a smear campaign, plastered all over the front page of the LA Times. We lost our home. We lost everything. So if, when people tell me, oh, but I can't afford this, I look at them and I say, well, that's just an excuse, because I couldn't afford anything either. And I made sure that I was a powerful creator, and I created it for my kid. Mm-hmm. And part two is about resources. What do you do if you think that your kid, if your kid could have autism? My idea of autism was was the Rain Man. And Dustin Hoffman's character. And so it was far from that. Every child on the spectrum is different. They're all unique. They're all beautiful in their own perfect way. So I had no idea. So what does autism look like? What are the signs and symptoms? What are some resources? Where can you actually go? What are some great organizations? TACA was one of the best organizations. There used to be Generation Rescue. It's no longer operating, but I always say go through talkanow.org and find a mentor, get somebody to mentor you. If that person doesn't work for you, move on to the next one, because I didn't have a very good mentor when I first started. So anyways, different books to read, all of that. I find that that's super important. If you're looking for answers, here's the book that you can read. Here's the conference you can go to. And part 3 is all about biomedical intervention.
Wow.
It's finding the underlying conditions that could mask itself as autism. So, does every child make this miraculous recovery like my son did? No, unfortunately, every child is different and every child responds differently. I feel some of it, sure, people are going to argue, is it genetic? Is it due to the vaccines? Now we're exposed to environmental stuff every day. The air you breathe is toxic.
Yep.
So it's a number of things. And do I feel that vaccines are a contributor? Yes, I do. That is my own personal opinion. I watched my son regress after his vaccines. So that is my personal, take on it. And in that third part, I also talk about different types of treatments and diet. Diet is huge. There's a gut-brain connection. And if your child or you has a messed up gut, then it's going to affect the way you think and the way you function. And it's going to make you cloudy-brained and all that stuff. I do have a vaccine section in my book. And I do talk about the history of vaccines. I state facts. I don't get my emotions involved. I don't rant. I don't rave. There are people out there that are very sensitive to this subject. So I cater to a huge audience. When I wrote this book, I wanted to make sure that if somebody who was on the autism spectrum picked it up and read it, that they would not be offended in any way, shape, or form. They are all beautiful people. They're all very unique. I'm so grateful for my journey with my son. He is amazing. He is my biggest teacher. He is such a kind-hearted and loving kid. And today he is fully functioning. I mean, he can take care of himself. He can cook for himself. He can drive a car, or at least we're learning.
Yeah. That's awesome.
A little nervous, but he's doing really well. And if it wasn't for that intervention, then I do not believe that he would be where he is today.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That is crazy.
It gives me goosebumps.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the what did you say it was called?
Biomedical intervention. So biomedical is really about what I always recommend to parents, because I've been a parent mentor for over 13 years, is to go get a baseline, go to a functional medicine doctor. They have doctors that are certified in treating kids on the spectrum or with special needs. They're called MAPS doctors. It's Medical Association for Pediatric Special Needs. They used to be called DAN doctors back in my day. They followed a Defeat Autism Now protocol. So what they do is they test for underlying conditions. And let's say, for example, if a child had Tourette's and they tested positive for PANDAS or PANS, Yes, that's pediatric autoimmune neuropsychotropic disorder associated with strep.
Wow.
Yeah, say that really fast 5 times.
Nope.
I just say panda.
So a lot of times the number one sign for pandas is tics and Tourette's, but also autism. So my son did test positive for pandas. He had a high level of strep, and it's something that continues to reoccur and come back. So he does have a weak immune system. So we do have to constantly, follow up on it and make sure that we keep his blood work updated and treat whatever underlying stuff there is, because pandas is actually pretty serious. When you have really high strep levels in your blood, it affects you neurologically. What it does is it causes inflammation on the brain and can cause further regression. So it is good to treat it. There's many different ways to treat it. Every doctor's different, but the main thing is to find a doctor. You can go through the MAPS website and find a doctor near you. Or you can always ask for recommendations. You can find a mentor. And there are also grants too. I do know that TACA offers grants. I do talk a lot about them because they are local to me in California. But there are grant programs across the United States. They are not the only nonprofit organization that helps assist parents with any type of functional medicine or biomedical intervention.
Right. Wow. So was your son, did the doctors ever admit what caused your son to start going into having autism? Did they ever admit to that?
Western medicine did not. My functional medicine doctor did, and that was at the time my DAN doctor. So I was very blessed that my naturopathic doctor, whose office was adjacent to ours, assisted me by calling all the DAN certified doctors in my area and asked them all kinds of questions, what kind of labs they use. I mean, he was a gem. I'm truly grateful.
Does he still practice?
He did not. He was mainly a research doctor. He did a lot of research for cancer research, and he's been the spokesperson for the Beamer device, which is like electromagnetic therapy pad. Yep. He's been their spokesperson for a long time. And he was also, I think he's on the board for the research board, but he's traveled all over with Beamer for many years. But truly grateful to him. It's definitely, it's been a journey, you try one thing and it works, and then you try another and it works, and you'll start to plateau a little bit. And then you keep going on to, whatever's new and the greatest treatment out there. So it's a never ending story to keep us as human beings, not just kids on the spectrum, healthy. And unfortunately, we're just finding that vaccines tank your immune system. Well,
I heard someone one time who had the analogy of our cup is pretty full. It's got all the junk from the air and all the junk from the food and all of the junk from our waters and all of that. And then you put the vaccines in there and it just kind of makes it tip over. Like everything that was wrong in our body just kind of goes crazy, chaotic. So was it necessarily the vaccine? I mean, partly, but all of this other stuff that they are doing to us without us even knowing about it is what pushes it over the edge.
Yeah.
Well, what people used to always ask me is how come it's the MMR or the varicella or whatever, the 1-year vaccines, because they're live viruses, and typically live viruses don't have preservatives like aluminum and mercury and all those preservatives to keep them to extend their shelf life.
Sure.
But if you count the 20 plus vaccines that they receive in the first year of their life, what happens is they have all of that mercury and aluminum and everything floating around in their little bodies. And when you give them heavy dose of a bunch of live viruses, it kicks in an immune reaction. Now, when that happens, our body releases white blood cells. And they're called macrophage. And what macrophage do is they go around and they eat the bad stuff, right, in the body. And I mean, it's just a guess, but some professionals say that that's how it happens is, all the vaccines from the first year. And then when they receive the live viruses, and then that breaks the blood-brain barrier, because the heavy metals themselves typically don't break the blood-brain barrier. Heavy metals do store in our fat and they can travel up to the brain. But
usually things with polysorbate 80 can break the blood-brain barrier, because I know that's one of the ingredients in like Tylenol. And that's why they recommend you not giving Tylenol to your kids. A naturopath would do this, recommend you not giving Tylenol or anything like that to your kids before shots, because it does break down the blood-brain barrier. But if you go to your primary doctor, they're like, oh yeah, it's fine. It's totally fine, because they want that broken, because they want that in your kids' head, because that means you just made yourself a lifetime warranty kid.
Money for big pharma for life.
Yeah.
Once I found out my son was on the spectrum, and all the times that my doctor had blown me off when I said, is it possible my son could have autism? And she's like, no, he just needs speech. He's a boy. They develop late. I mean, I got the runaround so many times. And then after I found out he had autism, I got a copy of his records, and she went back and, let's say, doctored his records by putting in there twice on 2 different occasions that she recommended he be evaluated for autism. And I'm like, wow. So after I chewed her out on the phone for about an hour and a half, and I definitely did. And she just sat there and listened.
Wow.
I knew I never wanted to go back to a pediatrician again. So what I would do is, we had a very close family friend who is a doctor. If Noah had something that was urgent, then, that needed antibiotics. Cause I don't say that, children don't need to see a doctor. That, you do need, if there are medical situations that they do need a doctor. So if that was the case, I could always call upon him, take Noah in to see him, because I trusted him. But for the most part, Noah had a functional medicine doctor, and I did everything through his DAN doctor at the time. And she's my very dear friend, and is still our doctor till this day. I mean, we have another doctor that's local because we moved since then, but she's pretty amazing. So I've learned a lot from her over the years, and but it's all come together for the right reason. So I'm truly grateful. I can't say I would change anything in my life, because me being able to be that warrior mom and do whatever it is that I had to do to heal my child, it, has given me the ability to mentor other parents and assist them on their journey. And then, to write this book, and then hopefully help so many more parents out there.
And that's amazing. We need like, it's just a mom thing. We all have that inner like protective mama bear instincts. Like, something's wrong with your kid, no matter what any other professionals say. They're not around your kid 24/7. They can't sit there and tell you, no, that's normal. No, not for my kid.
Right.
And so I'm glad you listened to that mommy gut instinct, because once again, you were right. Moms usually 99.9% of the time are right. And I mean, I can tell, I have 7 kids of my own. I mean, I can tell when one of my kids, just by her talking, is getting a cold. Like, dude, no, here's some elderberry syrup. Like, let's start dosing you up, And so that's amazing that like you took this journey, even against all the odds that were against you. Cause I'm sure the medical field did not want to hear it. And the more you dig into this stuff, and I know I just started digging into the whole vaccine thing about 4 years ago, almost 5 years, because Savannah will be 5. It took me by surprise because, like, when I started pulling all of my kids' medical records, my first 5 kids, the first 3 were fully vaccinated. The number 4 and 5, they were partially vaccinated, and then 6 and 7 had nothing. And I could clearly see the big, huge difference between each one when I went through their medical records. And it's just mind blowing, and you can't deny it because the evidence is right there. My first 3 kids in and out of the hospital for the first 2 years of their life. All of them had tubes put in their ears and the tonsils and adenoids taken out. All of them.
Yeah.
And then
so it immediately tanks the immune system.
Yes.
The number one thing is ear infections.
Yep.
I can tell you, Noah was in the doctor's office almost every month for ear infections. So that's where diet plays a huge part, because if our bodies are full of yeast from antibiotics, then what it does, it inhibits the body's ability to absorb, proteins and nutrients. So then you start to see the dark circles around the eyes. They start to get the distended, belly. That's why there's a lot of self-injurious behavior if you got leaky gut. So really tackling the gut issues and working on that is a big part of it. But not to say antibiotics don't, that they're not needed. That unfortunately they're not needed as much as they are for ear infections. There are little ear infections that could clear up on their own. But a severe ear infection, yes, it needs antibiotics.
Absolutely.
So, but and my kid had to go through tubes and everything else. Asthma is another one. I can't tell you how many children have asthma and diabetes. Type 1 diabetes, not type 2, but type 1 diabetes is a big contributor as well. So
that's just the sick world that we live in right now. Like literally sick world. I mean,
but all you can do is just, do your best to heal others. Like I try not to get tied up in the whole, controversial mess of vaccines, because then that stands in the way of me getting my message across from a complete space of love, that I am trying to assist parents in healing their children. Or my book can help so many more, not just, kids with autism, but anybody with any type of special needs, or, ailments as a kid. I think it's a great story.
It is. It's an amazing story. Where can we get your book?
So currently, my book is not out yet. In November, I will have my author copies. So I do have pre-sales on my website, and you can go to purehealth.com, and that's PUR health.com. So no E in that. And there is a tab at the bottom that says Warrior Mom, and you click on it. For $29, you will get a signed copy of my book, and you will also get a free gift. I'm not telling anyone what that free gift is yet. And so then we're doing an ebook release. January 17th is when my ebook will be out. So hopefully when I do that ebook release, the ebook will only be a few dollars. So people will have an opportunity for a very short period of time to get my ebook at a very low cost.
That's awesome.
And then the actual book will hit bookshelves April 4th. So that is Autism Awareness Month, is in April.
Nice.
So we shot for April 4th. And so the books will hit all the Barnes and Nobles and all the different bookstores at that time. But you can always buy it, directly from me. It's all about, healing children and just getting the message out as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So they can do that directly through my website. So come mid-November, I should have my author copies.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I can't wait till the book comes out where I can read it.
Me too.
And then we can even put it on our website so people can go and
Hit
click
the
on the
link.
link to get to her books.
Oh, thank
And
you.
that way it's always up. Now, anybody who wants to learn more about autism and how to help heal your child, make sure you you're on the lookout for that book come November. The ebook, right? Ebook is in November.
No, you can get an
Author's copy.
actual book.
Authors, that's right. There
Yeah.
we go.
So I get my author copies. They're printed copies. They will be signed. I will be mailing them out personally with a free gift. And then come January, the ebooks will be on sale.
Yay. Awesome. Well, make sure you guys are on the lookout for that book. Because I know I will be on the lookout. And I know Michelle will be. So we are definitely, you got 2 books sold already. So
Oh, no, but you automatically get a signed copy.
yay. Well, thanks again for coming on. We appreciate you. And once we get the book, we're going to have you on again.
Yes.
Alrighty.
It'll be great. Well, thank you, everybody. And remember, get up,
Get out,
Get loud.
loud.